Okay, and I'm back, and I gotta tell you, I'm in a good mood today. There's nothing quite like the feeling of getting good Game of Thrones. You know what I'm saying? Episode 2 is a vast improvement on episode 1, and so I'm very happy to say this show's getting pretty good. Honestly, I'm excited. I decided that I was gonna watch episode 1 just so that I could, hate it and make fun of it. But now I'm actually excited to watch it after episode 2, so let's break it down. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
Alright, so like I said, it's getting pretty good. And I'm trying to keep things... I'm trying to be not too nitpicky, because I can be very nitpicky. I can be very... what's the word I'm looking for? I think the word's anal, but I'm not 100% sure if that's the right term here. But I know that I can have really high standards for this stuff. And, I don't care. Those are my standards. I'm keeping them that way. I've actually had a lot of people ask me throughout the years, going back to, the times at the station from when Eddie asked me, like, dude, why can't you just enjoy things? And to me, it's always felt like when you love something, you don't want it to be mediocre, right? And so I love this franchise, and I want it to be an A. I want it to be 100. I want it to be the best it can be, because I know they have the source material, because I already know it, and I know they have the money for it. So if you have the money for it, and you have the source material, it should be an A. It's like, imagine, you have a kid, and your kid's really smart, and all of a sudden he starts coming in with C's from school. You're like, but I know, kid, like, I know you're smart. Like, I love you. I want you to be the best you can be. I want you to get an A. Like, imagine you have like a really good baseball player, and he decides to just, take a dump out in the middle of the outfield instead of going to catch the ball. It'll upset you. And so things like these upset me. So if you're wondering, why do I complain so much and all that stuff? It's because I don't want it to be mediocre. I want it to be a better product. Not just for me, but for you guys. So I feel like, we deserve better quality TV from the money that's being put into it, from the money that we're giving them. And they already have something that's really good. And again, episode 2 is not a bad example of it. It's actually pretty good. If I have to rank it, I'd put it on par with an episode from Game of Thrones season 2 or season 3 when it was still really good. Like, again, I was very, very impressed with this episode, because after episode 1, I was like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna hate watch this and complain. Not so much. I actually have a lot of praise. I'm gonna be nitpicky because I'm a nitpicky kind of guy, but mostly it's gonna be praise. So first off, big difference from episode 1. And before I get into it, I just want to mention this: the thing that felt the most different. This episode has no nudity and no fights, and you don't miss them, because at its heart, Game of Thrones, if you remember going back again to season 1, it's at its heart a medieval political drama. That's what it is, with a little bit of fantasy sprinkled in, like very little. Throughout the seasons, they added more fantasy, and more over the top stuff, and I think that's where it kind of lost its way. But at its heart, it's a political drama. This is what this episode was. It was mostly small council meetings and conversations, and it was super interesting. It was super subtle. And so, looking back at episode 1, it's like you were trying way too hard to be like, we're still Game of Thrones, look at us, we're still edgy, we'll show you a dude's butt while we're cutting off his balls and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, look at all this nudity, look at all this violence. And so they were trying too hard. You know what I'm saying? And usually, people who try too hard tend to not come out as well. Like, they're kind of desperate, and so it felt that way. So I think I'm figuring that. So episode 2 felt a lot more relaxed, felt a lot more comfortable, felt more where it should be, more in its place. So let's break it down. First off, I'll start with a little bit of a complaint, and actually a bit of a concern of mine. So we got let me put this on the big screen here. So we got a brand new open here. So first off, concern. They kept the same theme song from Game of Thrones, the dun 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 dun, which is a great theme. Here's the problem, though. It's if you've guys seen let's say like the new the Halo series or something. I haven't finished it, but I saw bits and pieces of the final episode, and the CGI and the special effects in the last episode are just horrible. And I mean like 90s level special effects, and I'm not talking Starship Trooper special effects, because those are actually pretty good. I mean, like, they just look bad. And you're like, oh my god, they burned out all the budget for it. And so looking at this, I'm like, did they, and the fact that they didn't pay for a new theme song, I'm like, did they burn all the money that they had and they couldn't afford a new theme song, so they just kept the one that they had already? I don't know. It seems like a very bizarre creative decision, but all right. Mostly I didn't like this particular open because it's basically, well, you're following the bloodlines. That's what I got from it, but nothing else. You don't really learn much. Like, if you remember the opening from Game of Thrones, again, it's all digital. It's all like, you're moving through the map of Westeros, and the castles are being built and stuff like that. So you're learning at least a little bit. You're learning a bit of the houses. You're learning the sigils. So you're learning stuff. This one, you don't really learn much from it, and so it left me wanting. Is it horrible? Not really. Will I watch it again? Probably never again. I'll just skip all of it because I can. You know, it's one of the beauties of, you know, streaming services. You can just skip the open. So let's get into the episode proper. And so we begin here seeing, like, again, the gory stuff. It's still, you know, like, scary. They're introducing the new, I guess, kind of villain, or like the new scary person here, the new weird character. And we're seeing basically something that was alluded to in episode 1. In episode 1, they mentioned that sailors were having issues, or ships were having issues in the Stepstones by basically a pirate king that calls himself the Crab Feeder. And here we're seeing dudes being eaten by crabs. So we're assuming it's them. So we get to see a small council meeting, and in this small council meeting, there's something I want to note, because it's one of those little things that bug me, but I actually found pretty funny. So if you noticed in the first episode, for some reason, the small council, when they meet, they put the little balls in front of them. There's like a little plate in front of them, or like, I don't know, like a coaster, and they grab a ball and they put it right in front of them, right? And so they put it in there. Why? I don't know. It's really weird. We didn't see that in Game of Thrones, but we're seeing it here, like this little ball right here, and everybody in the small council has a ball in front of them. We saw this in episode 1, and we were like, man, what the hell are those balls? Like, are they just walking around those little balls? Like, I actually saw a pretty funny joke saying that, oh, this is the two-factor identification for the small council meeting. So it's just weird. I'll get back to those at another point in the video, but I just want you to pay attention to it. There's a ball here right in front of Viserys. So we're moving up a little bit. We get to see the small council meeting, and in the small council meeting, they're discussing. There's basically one of the Kingsguard died, and they're discussing, you know, potential replacements. And so all of a sudden, Lord Valerian walks in, and he's very pissed because it's like, the freaking crab feeder killed my men and took my ships and my money and stuff like that, and I'm upset. And everybody's like, relax, we'll give you money, calm down. And he's like, no, I want to go kick his ass. And they're like, relax, we don't want to start war with the free cities. We'll go talk to them and stuff. And so at this point, they're like, well, listen, we're having talks with them, but we don't want to start anything weird. And here they mention something that, again, being nitpicky. I'm being super nitpicky because there's not much to complain about. One of the members of the small council mentions the Seven Kingdoms has never been at open warfare with the free cities. Okay, this is not something that I'm 100% sure that the Seven Kingdoms Westeros has always been called the Seven Kingdoms. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know for sure that Dorne is not a part of the kingdom yet. Dorne is its own separate thing. And I know that because the unification of Dorne happened several kings afterwards. And I don't mean one king, I don't mean two. I mean, like, I think Viserys is the 5th king, and I think the unification happened in like maybe by the 9th king. So it's still a ways down the way. So I'm not sure they should call it the Seven Kingdoms, but whatever, it's not really relevant. I guess it's so that the audience doesn't get confused. Because again, I said it before, you will get confused. There's a lot of really weird names going to be thrown around. I'm guessing they're trying to keep things simple. And so also, we started to notice. Well, actually, I'll save this for later because it'll make more sense later. So there's a small council meeting, and so here Rhaenyra suggests something actually pretty clever and pretty obvious if you have half a brain. And so she's like, why don't we send dragon riders, my lord, like my king, like, which is pretty logical, because I don't know if you guys know this, ships, they're made of wood, and you know, dragons, they spit fire. And so you know what sailors do not like on their wooden ships? Fire. It turns out it's no good for them. It's not good for the ships. And so it's a pretty simple, straightforward solution. Rhaenyra throws it out, and everybody's like, well, no, we don't want to agree to it. And the answer as to why seems pretty logical, and I don't understand why Viserys didn't just straight up say it. It's like, no, you're my only heir. You're not going anywhere. But all right, I mean, I don't know why. But even Corlys Valerian is like, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah, how about, you know what? We have dragons. How about if we use them? You know, like, you have them, like, let's put them to good use, but whatever. And so Otto Hightower suggests, like, how about if we use the princess's skills to do something else? So they decide that she should go choose the next Kingsguard. All right, so they send her off to meet with some of the potential knights. And again, this is something that's kind of weird. They're really changing the history of the show because they keep presenting knights that supposedly most of them or all of them are not tested in battle. Because if you remember, Rhaenys, again, you may get confused. There's a Rhaenyra and there's a Rhaenys. Rhaenys is the older cousin, the queen that never was. But anyway, Rhaenys said in episode 1 that it's been like 60 years of peace or whatnot. But that's not really been the case. If I'm not mistaken, her father died at war. So that's before Viserys became king, and so the king immediately before Viserys died in a war, and also the Seven Kingdoms are in constant war against the Dornish. In fact, we have somebody here who was mentioned that he's fought the Dornish, which is really weird because we'll get to Cristicole in a minute. The point is, and also this one kind of bugged me. They said that there's I guess, damn, I couldn't get the Mallister. There's a Mallister there. The Mallisters are basically the Lords of Seaguard. Seaguard, if you don't know, imagine right across the sea from the Iron Islands. So they're the first line of defense against the Iron Islands. And so I can guarantee you that a Mallister has fought against Ironborn at one point of his life. I can guarantee it because that's pretty much all they do. They go out and they fight Ironborn. So they picked the wrong house. I can understand other houses maybe, but it's weird. It's weird that there's like no knights with combat experience. It's very bizarre. There's a lot of rebellions. There's a lot of thieves. There's a lot of stuff going around. Somebody had to have done something, but whatever. They wanted to make it an easy choice for them to pick Cristicole. And Cristicole, again, really weird because they're saying he's Dornish. And then he's saying that the Stormlord sent him to fight the Dornish. And again, people hate the Dornish, right, at this particular point, especially people from the Gardenlands, because they are at war. They're not part of the Seven Kingdoms. They're constantly fighting. They're fighting over the Dornish marshes. So it's weird. And the people from the Dornish marshes, let's say, for example, I think if you guys have read the books, you remember Elaine, I believe that's her name. Elaine. It's the Sword of the Morning, House Dane. Ashara Dane. Okay. Ashara Dane is said to look like a Targaryen. By the way, Ashara Dane is kind of a supposed love interest of Ned Stark when he was younger. There's a lot of controversy. She might be Jon Snow's mother. Not in the show, because I remember in the show they made something really stupid, but whatever. In the books, she's one of the potential mothers, and honestly, it's I won't get into the theories, but whatever. The point is, supposedly they don't look Dornish. They look kind of like Valerian, but whatever. Moving on. So you got this Dornish dude who is fighting for the Stormlands against the Dornish, asking to be the Kingsguard. Which, I mean, listen, if you can swing a sword and you're loyal, that's fine. It's just pretty confusing history-wise, but whatever. Again, that's being nitpicky. In this show, that's not been established, so fine. We're going with what's been established in the show, so fine. So they ask him to be so he's asking to be a Kingsguard, and Lady Rhaenyra is like, yeah, I want that guy. And here's where things get interesting, because Lord Hightower, Otto Hightower, tries to convince her not to pick him. And again, this is part of the intricacies of, feudalism and political stuff, where he mentions something pretty important. Like, honestly, Kingsguards, don't really have to do much. They're glorified bodyguards, pretty much. I mean, you do want the best of the best there, or at least really highly capable ones, but it's mostly like I'm pacifying a family. I'm giving you this honor. Like, you have this third son that you don't care if he ever has heirs or something. He's not going to be your heir. He's not going to propagate your line. So you kind of just want to get him out of your house. But if the king accepts him in the king's guard, it's like, oh, well, this is such a huge honor. It's a huge honor on my family. It strengthens the ties to my family, because let's say I'm House, I don't know, Baratheon. I'm House Baratheon, and my third son gets accepted into being one of the king's guards. Well, if I ever decide to rebel against the crown, I'm going to have to I'm going to go directly against my own son or my own brother or something, which is a disadvantage because theoretically they know a lot about your family, and second, you don't kind of want to be in that. You don't want to be in that position because you already have favor in court. You have somebody literally standing next to the king who could get you favor, so you wouldn't find yourself in a position where you actually have to go like raise your weapons against the crown, because it's also kind of implied, like, hey, let's say again, you're the Stormlord, your third son's over there, and you go to negotiate with the king, and it's implied like, hey, my son is one of your swords. He's like right next to you, so like you also got to give me a little respect here, because if you insult me too badly, or if you don't kind of give me a little bit of my way, I mean, like, was one of the closest swords to you, you know, or to your family or to your daughter. So it's a position that you would use for political advantage more than for the practicality of having, you know, like, oh, the best warrior next to me. I understand, like, Rhaenyra's feelings of, okay, well, I want, you know, the most capable sword next to my dad. I want the most capable person, you know, protecting us. I get it. It's just not exactly the best strategy politically. So again, I understand Otto Hightower's here, and you're going into the intricacies of a political drama. I wish they would have explored that a little bit more, but whatever, it's fine. It's not a terrible thing. Again, super being nitpicky, but still enjoyable, fun. And so she makes her choice, and then we get to see Viserys showing off his miniature. And I gotta tell you, I watched this show by myself, and then I watched it again with my kid brother, and my kid brother loves Viserys because he's just like a nice guy. You feel bad for him being king, because clearly he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want the responsibility. He just wants to go home and play with his miniatures. Like, honestly, I would not be surprised if for the rest of the season we just see him paint that thing. Like, all right, well, I built it, and now I'm painting it, and this is my hobby, and I'd rather be in my hobby than sitting in this stupid chair that's, you know, keeps cutting me. So you kind of feel bad for him that way, and he's growing on me. I gotta tell you, Viserys is growing on me in his own very weird way, but whatever. So he's explaining how old Valeria was built, all this stuff, to Lady Alicent. And let me tell you, so far, I said in episode 1, the High Towers were my favorite. Now I'm doubling down. Alicent, the way she was written and her performance is top notch. It's extraordinary because it's subtle. And if you guys, you know, have watched any of my content before, I appreciate subtlety. She's not trying too hard. She's just basically being there, but she's not pushing, and we'll get more to that in another scene. But basically, she's listening to the king, you know, explain his hobby, something that he's excited about, like, oh, look, like a little kid, like, look at this thing that I have, and it's my toys and whatever. We've all been there, and so he explains all that stuff, how it happened, and we get a little bit of breakdown of how old Valeria used to be. They're at their strength. Basically, he was breaking down how the Roman Empire, they had 1,000 dragons, a navy that could span all across the seas, and so how it will never be seen again, and, you know, the kind of tragedy of it. So you see that Viserys is a guy who kind of lives in the past, right? And so again, you get to see Alicent being kind to him, and they have a conversation about Viserys' relationship to Rhaenyra, and so Alicent gives pretty good insight. You know, it's pretty like reasonable stuff. It's like, basically, go talk to her, you know, try it, make an effort. Things might be weird, but if you actually take a step and actually make an effort, things might work out. It's you need to, basically, you're the grown up here. You need to, take the first step. Then you get a scene with her and Rhaenyra, and it's kind of the similar thing, except in the opposite. She's suggesting that Rhaenyra should make an effort, to have a relationship with her dad, and that she should be ready because his father will have to remarry at one point. So she should prepare herself for that. We learned that her mom's been dead for 6 months and stuff like that. We know that, by the way, I forgot to mention this, during the small council meeting, we learned that Daemon took Dragonstone. Dragonstone is the ancestral home of the Targaryens, which is like right across from King's Landing. If you watched my Game of Thrones breakdown, you saw how upset I was that they just abandoned Dragonstone, but whatever. I'm not going to get into that right now. And so Daemon is, let's say, in a very dangerous position for the Red Keep, but he's not really doing anything. He's just kind of been sitting there for 6 months. And so, there again, back to this conversation. Alicent and Rhaenyra, they're having this conversation, and Alicent genuinely looks like she cares about making Rhaenyra feel better. Like, and again, that's part of the subtlety, because she is manipulating, but she's manipulating with kindness. So it's like, is that really a bad thing? Maybe, because again, you're manipulating, but it's not terrible, and it's subtle because she's not pushing too hard. However, she is slightly nudging in the direction of bringing them together. So again, is it a bad thing? Like, I'm bringing a strange father and daughter together. Does that make her a bad person? No. Does it make her manipulative? A little bit, but is it a good thing? It's interesting. So again, interesting character. Like, I'm enjoying the way that she's been written and the way that she performs. She's got like a very soft voice, and it breaks a little at the end at certain times. Very, very well done. Like, this actress, like, top notch so far. And so, makes her pray. They share, she actually has pretty good lines. Like, mine own father does not speak the language of girls. It's pretty good. Like I said, it's getting pretty good. So, whoops. After this, this particular conversation, Rhaenyra cries a little bit for her mom, blah, blah. Then we get to see a meeting between Lord Valerian and Viserys and Rhaenys. Basically, Valerian is explaining to Viserys why he sucks, why his kingdom is kind of a mess, and he is. Then he gives a solution. Basically, he says, "Listen here, Viserys, you suck as a king, right? You have a female heir, the first one in history. Your brother took Dragonstone, and he's refusing to leave. The Stepstones got taken over by a hostile enemy. They're affecting the people of your continent. Like, come on, man, get your act together." And Viserys is like, "All right, fine. What's your solution, guy?" And his solution is funny. But I think it's funny because the solution is like, well, in order to fix all these problems, you should marry my daughter. Which, again, is very self-serving, but if you think about it, he's kind of in a good position to do it. And now, this is where I feel there was another mistake in episode 1, because they never really set up Lord Valerian the way that they should have. Because here, in episode 2, Lord Valerian is completely different from episode 1. Episode 1, he's kind of like, yeah, I'm friendly to Daemon, I support Rhaenyra, whatever. He's kind of like, he's suggesting that there's gonna be issues in the Stepstones and whatnot, but he seems kind of not too, let's say, ambitious. Here, episode 2, he's clearly ambitious, and he's clearly planned, and he's clearly a rival of Viserys. So, again, this is not a flaw of episode 2. This is a flaw of episode 1 of not establishing Lord Valerian as an actual rival, as a person who has aspirations for power. If they would have set that up better in episode 1, it wouldn't have seemed as out of place here in episode 2, but whatever. Again, I'm judging episode 2 by itself. And so clearly, this man has ambitions, and the ambition is, well, I want my line in the throne. My wife couldn't do it, so I want my daughter to be on the throne. And so then, by consequence, I want my first grandchild to be the new heir. And this is interesting, a very interesting situation, because Lord Valerian is expecting that if Viserys marries his daughter, they'll have a male heir, and then the male heir will become the heir to the Iron Throne, right? Even if they have 5 daughters before, eventually there's like law of the dice, I guess. Eventually there's got to be a boy that comes out, right? And he expects that boy to be the heir, which is pretty funny, standing next to Rhaena. And he's actually made a lot of arguments as to why Rhaena should be the queen. So I can guarantee you that if Viserys married Lena, and Lord Valerian would not make the argument that Rhaenyra should remain the heir. Not at all. Not even a little bit. Not even at all. So it's just funny. Maybe, let's say, a kind of a bit of a plot hole, but also it could just be plain old hypocrisy. Because, people are hypocrites, especially when you're talking about politicians. But whatever. Let's move on. So they suggest, like, hey, you should marry our daughter, Lena. And Viserys is like, well, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about it. Because, it's my wife died, but I'll think about it. So then he has dinner with Rhaenyra. And so they're kind of trying to talk a little bit, but clearly they're not communicating well. And, she kind of tries to apologize for speaking up in the small council meeting. Viserys is like, whatever, you're young, you'll learn. And so they're having clear issues communicating. She tries to explain why she chose Sir Criston, but again, Viserys doesn't know how to talk to her. And if you remember, Viserys is kind of he has to feel guilty because he's kind of the reason why her mom is dead. So it's one of those things like, it has to be eating him up inside a little bit, because he made the decision. Again, impossible decision. Which one do you choose? The baby or the mom? This is an impossible decision even in modern times. And he made a decision and it was the wrong one and he has to live with it. But I'm assuming it has to be hard for him to look at Rhaenyra, but whatever. I mean, not whatever. Moving on. They don't explicitly say that on the show. I'm just assuming. But whatever. And I'm assuming the actor, that's why he's doing it this way. That's why he's interpreting it this way. I don't know. I'd have to ask him if I ever meet him. And so next we get to see a scene where we see Viserys' finger is basically rotting away. And it's a wound that got infected. It's festering. It looks pretty bad. So they're gonna put maggots on it. And it's gross, but it's one of those things where this is the same injury that he got the day that he kicked Daemon out of court. When he hit the Iron Throne, and now it looks pretty terrible. And on the first episode, we saw him get another injury that wasn't really getting healed. And so it's like, what the is Viserys sick? What's going on? Does he have a condition? What the hell's going on? Does he have the stone disease that I forget the name right now? Maybe I'll remember. So it's like, what the hell's going on with him? Now, it's been rumored that, okay, this is not a spoiler, at least I don't think, because again, it's a rumor, it's not confirmed, but it's been rumored that maybe he was poisoned at some point, or he was being poisoned. It's not exactly clear. And if he is being poisoned, then it's very subtle because it's very slow acting. But who knows? Maybe it's little by little, we'll see. We'll see. Again, I don't know. It's just a rumor that I heard. I don't even remember reading it, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Next, they have a pretty interesting conversation where Viserys mentions to Otto Hightower that Lord Valerian suggested that he marry his daughter Rhaena. And again, here you see the subtlety of the Hightowers. Now, Lord Otto Hightower clearly wants Viserys to marry his daughter Alicent. It's very clear. He sent her to his room, to comfort him or whatever. And so the reason why Alicent is spending time with Viserys is because Otto sent her in his direction. Clearly he wants it. But here's the beauty of the manipulating subtly and with kindness. He does not overreact. He does not immediately say no. He's like, she's a bit young, but okay. And then, the Maester says that would be a great match because, both the great Valerian houses, it would be, she also has Targaryen blood, so that'd be good. The Lord Hightower's got the, the biggest navy in the kingdom, so he's like the richest man. By the way, they should have established that in episode 1, or they should have established that earlier on in this episode. So, because again, it lets you know who you're dealing with. You should know who the richest man in the room is. You should know who the person with the strongest navy is before they start saying like, hey, I have issues with my ships. So again, mistakes of episode 1 more than episode 2. In episode 2, I would have mentioned this earlier, because now it's like, well, you know, the audience marinates an idea along with the characters. So Viserys has been contemplating something now for a couple of scenes, right? And now the audience here is receiving new information. So it's like, oh, well, this changes my math. So for a few scenes, I was contemplating just these things, but now I have to add this on top. It's, again, not a terrible thing. It's just it would have been better for the audience if that would have been explained earlier or even an episode before. Again, this is totally a mistake of episode 1. Corlys Valerian was not established correctly in the first episode. Who he is, what his ambitions are, or at least that he's an ambitious person, that he's rich, and that he has like the largest navy in the largest fleet in the Seven Kingdoms. Again, that's why they're calling them the Seven Kingdoms right now, but whatever. Anyway, so Otto is basically not saying no, but you know, suggesting, accepting that, okay, but he's not pushing Alicent. That's the most important thing. Not pushing Alicent. And then he gives him a pretty interesting response. He gives him a response not as the king, but as a friend. He shares that, well, he lost his wife recently, and to have to pick a wife in, you know, because of duty is not something that he envies. So this is actually pretty interesting. I read this 2 different ways because I saw it 2 different times. The first time I saw it, I was by myself, and I read it. Well, the way I heard it was like, okay, well, he's saying you got to do it because, you know, it's your duty. If you're the king, this comes with being a king. And so it's your duty for the realm. I don't envy you. The other way of reading it, it's how I heard it the second time. The second time I saw the episode, I heard it closer to, you know, I wish I could, in your shoes, I wish I could follow my heart. And so, again, subtly pushing in a particular direction. Not overt, and with kindness. He's giving him legit advice. Or, you know, he's saying something as a friend. But clearly he has an agenda. Next, we get the scene where Corlys Valerian sort of kind of smiles while he's seeing Viserys walking around with his 12-year-old daughter. This is really funny. Seeing 50, 60-year-old Viserys out on a date with a 12-year-old is hysterical, because the actor is clearly uncomfortable, but he's doing an excellent job at playing it straight, because you gotta remember, this is Westeros, this is medieval times. As soon as a girl flowers, that's when they're good for marriage. They're good to go. And by the way, I'm looking up the actor's age here. He was born in 73, so he's almost 50. So he's 49, I guess, if I did my math correctly. Well, September 5th. Oh, so it's almost his birthday. So he's 48. I don't know. I think he's 48. And so it's it's one of those things that I just found it hysterical. The little girl trying to speak like an older woman, you know, like but still clearly has childish interest. She wants to talk about dragons and Vagar and where she's nesting and stuff like that, and Valeria the Black Dread. And by the way, here they mentioned something that I did not think they were going to mention, and that's that Viserys is actually the last rider of Valerian the Black Dread. If you guys remember who Valerian the Black Dread is, supposedly the largest dragon in history, and it's the dragon that Aegon the Conqueror rode when he was conquering Westeros, basically. So there you go. And so it's, again, clearly still a little girl. She's saying stuff. She says that joining our 2 houses as they were in Old Valeria would be a great match, blah, blah. But clearly something recited. And you see it on Viserys' face because the actor's doing a great job. Like, did your dad tell you to say that? And it's funny because this is great acting on the part of this guy, because he's taking her seriously, but he's uncomfortable. So he's kind of uncomfortable with the situation, but also it's like, okay, this is kind of a normal thing. But it's it's just, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny because it seemed really well acted to me. And so he's kind of like, I mean, is this a date or am I babysitting? It's weird. And so then that's when he's like, all right, and what did your mother say? And she's like, well, that I wouldn't have to bet you until I'm 14 years old, which is, again, it's kind of, the thing was that you can't bet a girl until they've had their first period, basically. So because that, before then, they're not really a woman yet. They're still a child. And so then we get to see Rhaenyra. She was looking at his father having a date with a 12-year-old, and she walks away kind of not happy. At the same time, you see Rhaenys was kind of looking there, and she, in her own Rhaenys sort of way, she's kind of giving Rhaenyra advice. Now, there's many ways of reading this scene. Clearly, Rhaenyra was pissed, and she was looking somebody to take out her anger on. And Rhaenyra, from the way I understood it, or the way I saw it, she was actually trying to be nice. She was trying to be kind. She was actually trying to give her advice from her perspective. And you need to understand, Rhaenys, the queen that never was, is kind of jaded. She's like, yeah, society hates me. She hates women. I mean, they could have picked me to be queen, but they didn't. So you should be ready, because when the time comes, they're gonna do the same to you. Again, she clearly has a dog in the fight. She kind of, if you could read it as she's trying to be kind and let her know what the reality of the situation is, or she's also trying to dissuade her or dishearten her, because in the future, one of her daughter's heirs could be a potential heir for the throne, and she doesn't want that conflict there. So it could be seen either way, the self-serving, or it could be both. And that's the beauty, of drama and characters with multiple motivations. It actually could be both things, because this is her niece, but she's also, a political adversary. So we'll probably never know, but it's fun to speculate. And I read it in the way that she's genuinely trying to be kind, because she's jaded because of what happened to her. And also, cherry on top, it actually would help out her situation. So, or the situation of her grandchildren. Yeah. So there you go. So they had this all conversation, and basically Rhaenys says the moral here, basically the most important thing is that, yeah, men would rather put the kingdom to the torch than to see a woman sit the throne or whatever. And actually, I'm pretty sure that Rhaenyra has one of the Daenerys lines, I'm gonna break the wheel. She says something similar, not exactly the same, but something similar. And so next we go back to Viserys having a lunch date with Alicent, and he tells Alicent that he's considering having a new wife, and that it's the Lady Elena, that they suggested the Lady Elena. And again, this is the beauty of the way that the High Towers have been written, and the way that Alicent, that the actress has been playing the character. She doesn't push. Like, she hears the news, she's kind of a little bit excited. You could tell that it's like, is it me? And then when he says Lady Elena, her response is, that's a very strong match, Your Grace. And you could see the pain in her face. And again, it's the delivery. In the Your Grace, her voice breaks a little, like, that's a very strong match, Your Grace. And so it's subtle. It's subtle. She's saying the right things. She's saying the polite things. She's being supportive. She's being kind. She's saying that, no, we need a queen that's good and kind. I'm sure the Lady Elena would be good and kind. I don't know her that well. And so she's saying all the right things. And so it's still a manipulation. She has an agenda. She wants to get there, but the way that she's doing it is subtle. She doesn't push. That's the genius of it. She's not pushing whatsoever. She's just there. And Viserys kind of feels bad telling her, because he sees the pain that he's causing. It's subtle. She's not breaking, she's not breaking to tears. She's being strong about it. But Viserys clearly doesn't like it, because he kind of feels uncomfortable looking at her. Very well acted, both of them. Very well written. This is good Game of Thrones. Political intrigue, drama, intense conversations, subtext. It's well done, really well done. And in the end, she gives her a gift, and it's basically that he broke a dragon, one of his toys earlier on, and she fixed it. So what's this symbolism? It's like, hey, I'm taking care of you. Hey, I care about you. It's, I got your back. I'm making sure that you have, that your dragon's intact. I'll take care of your dragon. And, stuff like that. It's nice to feel taken care of, It's somebody you feel you can trust who's looking out for your best interests. Because, again, she said the right thing. She said, yeah, that would be a strong match, Your Grace. Clearly, she's not selfish. She's not doing this for herself. She's doing this because she cares about me. Very, very cleverly done. In the end of this particular conversation, Otto Hightower walks in. He tells them that there's going to be a small council meeting, and there's no real awkwardness, because it's, like, imagine you walk into, I don't know, your boss's office and your daughter's sitting there. You'd be like, the hell is going on here? But Otto plays it cool, so Viserys is like, that Otto, he's a good dude. Again, it's all kind of part of the subtle manipulation. And in the end of the scene, Alicent gives Otto a look like, we're running out of time, or a what should I do type of look. You know what I'm saying? Because they are playing a game. Anyway, in the small council meeting, and by the way, before I forget, Rhaenys criticized Rhaenyra for being the cupbearer at the small council meeting, the king's cupbearer. I need to clarify this because that bugged me. Being the cupbearer of the king is a huge honor, a massive honor. It puts you in the small council meetings. It makes you privy to privileged information. It's like, imagine being like the president's assistant. Like, it's super important. You think it wouldn't, but it wouldn't be. But it's a position of really, really high honor. It's important. You're being groomed to be something else. I'll just remind you that kind of Jon Snow was the squire. He was basically the assistant of Lord Commander Mormont, because he was grooming him to become the next Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Here's something pretty similar. Rhaenyra is learning what it takes to be, part of a small council, how politicking works, how all this works. So it's no insult. So Rhaenys spitting that in her face is really weird. I guess the people who write the show don't really understand what it means, but whatever. Again, little mistakes, just little mistake. I just want to throw that out there in case you didn't know. Anyway, so we get this. One of the dragon keepers is basically saying, "Hey, they stole one of our eggs." And Viserys is like, "How the hell did they steal one of our eggs?" And he's like, "It was Prince Daemon, my lord." But he says it in Valerian. But I don't know. I think this accent kind of fits. And so he's like, "Prince Daemon, who was the culprit, your grace," and that's how he managed to do it, because he's sneaky. He's a sneaky man. And so Viserys, then they tell Viserys, like, well, we also know it was Daemon because he left a note, and the note basically says, like, "Hey guys, I'm a Targaryen, and Targaryens can take 2 wives, so I'm taking a second wife, and it's the Lady I think her name is Missandei or something. I guess I can check, because they do mention the name, and I think she should be on IMDb. Let me just check this real quick. Missaria. I was close. Missandei, somebody else. No, Missaria. So it's like the Lady Missaria, and she's with child. So I took an egg for his cradle, because I'm a Targaryen, whatever. And I'm the rightful heir, blah 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 blah. And so Viserys is like, he's just trying to provoke me. It's just Daemon being Daemon. It doesn't matter. He's just being whatever. And so while they're contemplating what they could do, this is an insult, this cannot stand, blah blah, Rhaenyra asks the question of which egg did Daemon take. And but again, like I said, Daemon left an invitation to his wedding to his whore, left an invitation to the wedding of him to his whore, who was supposedly pregnant with, and so he stole the egg because of that. And so the Rhaenyra asked the question of which egg did Daemon take, and she said the dragon pit guy says that the dragon keeper says he stole Dreamfire's egg, the one that she had chosen for her brother's cradle. And so for those of you who don't know, the Targaryens have the tradition of when babies in their cribs, they put a dragon egg with them. Now I can go into a whole lengthy thing about this, but basically it has been suggested that certain Targaryens have the skill of hatching dragons, and the way that they do that is they spend time with the egg, and there's something about them that makes eggs hatch. And so when a Targaryen is born, they put an egg in their crib, and if it hatches, it's because they have that dragon hatching skill. Not all Targaryens have it. It's the same way as not all Targaryens have the dragon riding skill. If you want to get into it, the crazy part, it's kind of like some Targaryens have the psychic ability with the dragon that allows them to ride them. Again, we're going deep into George R.R. Martin stuff, because George R.R. Martin is not a fantasy guy, he's a sci-fi guy, And so science fiction has a lot of rules and there's logic behind it. And so if you want to break it down with sci-fi, how you could ride a dragon, it's because you would have a psychic connection to it. And there's a lot of hints throughout the series that there's psychic connections throughout the show. I mean, just think about Jon Snow and his connection to ghosts and stuff like that. So something like that. The simple version basically is that Targaryens like putting eggs on the cradle because maybe this particular Targaryens will have the skill of hatching dragons. There you go. So it turns out that he stole the egg of Viserys' dead son, and so he's pissed and he's like, all right, if Daemon wanted a reaction from me, he's getting a reaction from me, so I'm gonna go kick my brother's ass. And everybody is like, nope, stop. So Otto's like, sir, my king, wait, I'll go in your stead. And Viserys is like, what the hell, like I'm gonna go. And he's like, no, Daemon's without limit, I'll go in your place, I'll take care of it. So again, you see that it's subtle, he's using kindness. But clearly, Otto Hightower is saying, you can trust me. I can handle this for you, right? I'll take care of it. I'll deal with your problems for you. I would be a great, what's it called? What do you call the father of the in-law? I'd be a great in-law. So, because I care about you and your safety and stuff like that. And I got your back. So again, manipulation, but subtle. And by doing good things for you. So there you go. And so Otto decides to go, and he had this conversation with Alicent because Alicent, instead of biting her nails, she kind of like scratches her fingers, and clearly it's bad. It's clearly an anxiety thing, and so she's got her own issues. So the thing that we see is a mask. So again, different levels of a character. So this could be a girl who's upset for doing something that she doesn't want to be doing, but she is her sense of duty is that strong that she's like, I gotta do it, but it's literally hurting. It's causing her to hurt herself, or it could be something else. I don't know, but it's interesting to watch. And again, it's subtle. It's a little thing. The hands, little something. And Otto's like basically like, you gotta do something. All right, I kept the king here. You need to go to him tonight or whatever. So they're getting close to kind of like their desperation move. But you know, they take it, Alicent takes it pretty well, and so they head to Dragonstone. So they head to Dragonstone, and here we have a pretty good listen, I'm torn because this is a really cool scene. You know, the conversation between Otto Hightower and Daemon Targaryen, and it looks pretty cool, it looks epic, and it's going to lead to a fight, but then oh my god, Caraxes shows up. Caraxes is it's Daemon's dragon. And you're like, man, this scene required absolutely every single person in the small council meeting to be an idiot. In the span of that entire conversation, nobody could have said like, hey, what about the dragon? You know, like everyone like, hey, you know, Daemon has a dragon. That's kind of a big deal. It required everybody and their mother to forget that Daemon has a dragon that's loyal to him, you know, that he's a dragon rider. Caraxes, kind of a big deal. He's kind of one of the big boys. And so it's one of those things that I can listen, it requires everybody to be stupid and to forget, the dragon. It's kind of a big deal. But, you know, rule of cool. So I'll allow it. If it's cool, it's like, all right, fine, I'll let it slide. Because they still could have made it happen in a way that's better, but whatever. Rule of cool, I'll allow it. Anyway, so we get this conversation where Daemon is basically like, Otto, you suck, whatever. But it's interesting, and we'll get to Daemon more in a minute, but basically Otto Hightower has a pretty interesting critique. And I think he's absolutely correct in everything he says about Daemon here. And basically it's that Daemon's pathetic. That what he's doing is pathetic, and it's a desperate call for attention for his brother, and that he's like a sad little loser for being there, and that everybody thinks he's a loser, and this is sad. And that he would just relinquish, come back, and whatnot, and stop what he's doing. That he's insulting the crown, that he's insulting himself, and all that stuff. And every single thing that Otto Hightower says there is correct, at least in my humble opinion. But it's that means that the only out for Daemon there, it's like, all right, well, let's fight about it. And so the fight about it ends up with the dragon showing up, and so smartly, the rest of the Westerosis are like, well, you know what? Maybe, we don't want to fight a dragon because that's kind of one of the big ones. Like Caraxes, not known for being particularly nice. And so as they're backing off, the king's hand and everybody else, then there's like a roar in the distance, and we see clouds parting up, and boom, out of nowhere, Rhaenyra shows up riding Syrax, if I'm not mistaken. So she lands right behind them. And by the way, this is pretty interesting because I've read a lot of fantasy books with dragons and stuff like that, and it's weird because here they're treating dragons kind of like they're really well trained, but generally speaking, big dragons don't like other big dragons, the same way that big dogs don't like other big dogs, generally speaking. And there's also something about if a dragon's on the ground, they get really angsty when there's another dragon above them because they're vulnerable, because they can be attacked from on top. So it's just one of those things I was thinking, like, man, maybe I wouldn't have flown that close to it. But again, this is just stuff that's going through my head because, again, dragons aren't real. So I guess none of that really matters. Maybe dragons are actually pretty cool with other dragons. Who knows? Whatever. Doesn't matter. So Rhaenyra lands and she walks up to everybody and they're like, Princess, what are you doing here? Get the hell out. And she's like, well, I mean, you can try it, but Syrax is very protective of me. So again, if you guys remember, my critique of Rhaenyra from episode 1 is that she was lacking a bit of personality, and she's a dragon rider. So she should have a lot of confidence. She should be like, F you, I got a dragon. Like, you want, sure, I ride a dragon, whatever. And here she's finally doing it. So she's actually doing very rogue-like behavior. Again, Daemon Targaryen, he's supposed to be the rogue prince, but the one who's actually acting like a rogue here is Rhaenyra, and it's really cool because they're finally making her be cool. And also the genius of this is that she learned a lesson. So we see her at the beginning of the show. She suggests, like, how about sending a dragon rider? Everybody shut her down. Here, she did not ask for permission, which is what a rogue does. They just kind of like do their own thing. She's a maverick. She's going out there. She's doing her thing. I don't ask for permission. I'm just going to go do it. And I know that I'm going to be successful with it, so I won't get in trouble. That is what a rogue does, and we'll get more into that later on. So she goes and talks to Prince Daemon, because she's also confident that he's not going to do anything to me. She's my uncle. He's just, having a fit or whatever. And Daemon there basically confesses, like, this is weird, like very weird, because Rhaenyra tells Daemon, like, hey, you're in my castle. And Daemon's like, not until you're a woman grown, or not until you're a woman grown. So again, according to Westerosi rules, when a woman flowers, then she's good enough to be bedded, she's good enough to be married, she's good enough to have kids, so she's a woman grown. Like, once they flower, like once they have their first period, good to go, grown up. Here, he's kind of mentioning it that maybe she has to be, I don't know, what, 15, 16, 18? When are you full grown in Westeros? Who knows? Again, the rules pretty much is for women, it's once you flowered, you're fair game. But all right. It's just weird. I found it weird that they broke that's weird. They broke something that they mentioned within the same episode, because again, Lady Elena, Lena Valerian, earlier in the episode said that I wouldn't have to bed you until I'm 14. So is that the age? That when you're full grown? I think Rhaenyra is over 14. I think the actress is like, what, 18, 20? Let me check. I can check that really quickly. Millie Alcock, she was born in the 2000s. So yeah, she's 20. She's 22. Yeah, April 2000. So yeah, she's 22. So is that full grown? I don't know. Maybe. So I just found that interesting. Anyway, so basically, Rhaenyra's like, you know what? I'm the reason you're not the heir. Kill me, or just get out of here, or stop with all this. It's getting pretty boring and pathetic. So Daemon is like, fine, whatever. Here's the egg, and he confesses that he's not really getting married and that the girl's not really pregnant. Basically, it's all a prank. And so Rhaenyra leaves, and she gives back the egg, whatnot, and she gets on her dragon and leaves. It's again cool scene. It depended on everybody being an idiot, but the end result, pretty cool. It was tense. It was dramatic. No fight whatsoever, but there was a build-up to it. So it was pretty cool. And you have a character doing something cool, which is the most important thing. you got to see Rhaenyra, which is the lead of the show, being a badass. You know, being like, I don't care about the rules. I don't care if I get in trouble. I'm going to do this because I think it's the right thing, and I know that I can do it, so screw everybody else. That's really cool. That's cool stuff. Good. More of that. Let's do that more. Anyway, moving on. This kind of leads to the negative part of it, and it all has to do with Daemon Targaryen. I've had a lot of issues with how Daemon has been portrayed by Matt Smith, but mostly with how he's written, because they've made him really pathetic. Really, really pathetic. And if you're going to be the Rogue Prince, this episode is called the Rogue Prince, he should be doing Rogue Prince-like behavior. Now, it looks like at the end of the episode that they're kind of building up to that, but so far he's done like petty, small, pathetic stuff. Like really pathetic. It's embarrassing. And again, like I said, I agree 100% with what Otto Hightower was telling Daemon earlier in the earlier scene. This is pathetic. Like, you just want your brother's attention. What are you doing? You're insulting you're insulting yourself, your family, everything. This is sad. And it was, because basically he had a fit. He took a castle that's, you know, his family's castle, and in a fit he took his whore with him, and now he's doing a prank? He sat there for 6 months, just jerking off, and then he decided, I'm gonna prank my brother by stealing an egg and telling him that I'm marrying a whore, and nah. That's pathetic. That's, again, that's the opposite of cool. That's just pathetic. That's sad. This is supposed to be, again, one of the coolest Targaryens in history. He earned the nickname, the Rogue Prince. The way that you earn the nickname of the Rogue Prince is being a rogue, a renegade, a maverick. You do stuff like Rhaenyra just did. You know, you break the rules, but you do something cool with it when you do it. It's interesting because what Daemon should be doing is stuff that's useful for the realm, but also makes other people look bad. So, for example, perfect example, the Night's Watch being overly brutal and savage and stuff like that. So Daemon, again, he was known as being a brutal guy, and so either beloved or despised. So it's one of those things like, oh, well, like, what's Viserys supposed to say? Like, you asked me to stop the criminals, I stopped the criminals. They're not gonna be committing that crime anymore. And like, but you were very brutal with it, but I stopped the criminals. Like, you had a problem, solution. And so he's supposed to stand there, kind of cocky like, and looking at Otto Hightower or his brother and being like, what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do? I did something that helped you. Everybody's happy that I did it except the bad people. What are you gonna do about it? You had a rule, I broke it, but I did something cool, so what are you gonna do about it? So it's, again, very similar to what Rhaenys did, except Rhaenys is not gonna be cocky about it later on. I mean, you'll see how she handles it. But that's what Daemon should be. He should be doing stuff that's actually useful, that's rallying people to his cause. It's like, I'm not like the king, but I'm kind of solving all your issues, so who are you gonna be behind, right? And so in this situation, the thing that made the most sense is for Daemon, again, who rides a dragon, who could very easily deal with people on ships, if he would have flown off and just taken care of the crab feeder. And again, this is going to come up later on in the episode, which is probably going to happen on the next episode, that they're going to go and fight off the crab feeder. But it's not coming from Daemon. Like, this should have come from Daemon being like, I just went there and I killed him. Like, and so there's a potential for it. So the small council would be in a fret, like, oh no, he's starting a war with the free cities. This could lead to trouble, blah blah. And Daemon would have been like, but I killed the pirates that was killing Westerosis. What are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna go to potentially war with the free cities without my dragon? What are you gonna do about it? It's like, oh no, I killed pirates. Are you what, defending pirates? Are you saying that I should have let them live? What are you gonna do about it? So again, stuff like that is how you get roguelike behavior. It's like, I'm doing stuff that helps you, but I'm pissing people off at the same time. So Viserys would have been like, well, he did kill, the crab feeder who was messing up our lane, so can I really be mad at him? Not really, but it has to come from him. All right, because so far he doesn't have a plan. All right, he doesn't have a plan. And it's really annoying because it makes the character super pathetic, especially when he spends a lot of his scenes just kind of like thinking. Like somebody says something and he's just thinking. Like here, he's getting chastised by his whore and he's just like morose, thinking. Every single one of his things, he for some reason he's just like, either he's looking confused or he's just But what is he thinking about? Because he's not doing anything. Again, seriously, just sitting there for 6 months jerking off. Maybe not, because I mean he did have a whore, but whatever. And so again, just making him look pathetic. They need to do a 180 on like, listen, I get it. You maybe want Rhaenyra to outshine or you don't want Daemon to outshine Rhaenyra. How about if you make them both cool, right? You don't need, like, there's more than enough room for two characters, and they could be constantly outshining each other. It's not a bad thing. In fact, you know what? Somebody argue, it's a good thing. It would make the show even better. So, let's say, bothered me a lot the way that they've handled this character. Very upset with it because there's so much potential. And again, this episode was called The Rogue Prince, and I'm not seeing any Rogue Prince-like behavior. But whatever. Again, he's getting chastised here by a whore. You ever been chastised by a whore? No. You know why? Because you pay him. And so it's like what's the movie? Four Brothers. Four Brothers. Like, you don't pay a hooker to fuck you. You pay her to leave. Stuff like that. You should, as a general rule, you should be taking this sort of crap from people you pay, right? But whatever. Let's move on, because again, this scene wasn't particularly great. And by the way, what happened to the big table? You remember this was this is a set that they used before. Daenerys has been in this room, and there was this massive table, and she didn't build that table. And also, maybe Stannis built it, but I think at one point they mentioned that Aegon the Conqueror had this massive table, which is a map of Westeros, and that he was planning his attack or whatever. I don't know what happened to that really big table, but it must have been a bitch to get out of there. Anyway, so that scene again sucked. Again, see, he's just standing there like thinking. A whole lot of thinking. Boring. Next, we got Viserys being notified basically that we have Viserys having a conversation with, I believe, Lord Strong. I believe it's Lionel Strong, if I'm not mistaken, about he wants his unencumbered opinion about the marriage to Lena Targaryen, because he's having issues with it. If you noticed earlier on, let me just see if I get it real quick. He's kind of looking at the dragon that Alicent gave him, so he's like, clearly he likes the girl, right? Because the girl's kind to him, so he's like, man, should I go one way, should I go the other? So he's looking for somebody to agree or disagree with him. And here we come back to something that I mentioned on earlier on in my little review thing. You remember the balls that I was talking about that they use for the council meeting or whatever for some reason? They're on the table. Like, if you look right now, right in the middle of the table, the balls are right here. I need to get this. I need to get the mouse out of the way. So, but right here, look at this particular area, right here. And because you know, it's the player once it moves. So look, the balls are right there. So this means I thought they were walking around with them to, I don't know, like to prove it's them or for some odd reason. But basically, what happens is when they walk in for a small council meeting, they walk to the middle of the table, they grab their ball, and they put it in front of them in their little ball coaster for no reason. There's no reason for this to look cool, sure. But what's the point? What's the point of having the balls? I don't get it. Like, it's so stupid. It's so stupid, but I love it. I love it because it's so stupid. Anyway, Viserys has a very interesting conversation with Lord Strong, and Lord Strong basically gives him a whole bunch of points. Oh, well, Viserys explains why he doesn't trust Corlys Valerian. He's like, I feel like he's greedily looking across the Blackwater because he wants my seat, blah, blah. And Lord Strong's like, yeah, he's an ambitious guy. Ambitious people do not like looking up, and your seat is the highest and whatnot. And he says, basically gives a breakdown. He has the biggest fleet. He's the richest. He's got good. He's got Valerian blood. His daughter's got Targaryen blood. It would be a great match. I really like the way that they had the conversation about the age, because it's not mentioned a lot, like it's a big deal. But he's like, Viserys is like, she's 12 years old. She'll mature. So I don't know. I thought that was really well delivered. And so basically, he's like, listen, you're the king. You have to have heirs. You need to strengthen the royal line. It's part of your duties. You want to be a king? This is part of your duties. And honestly, it's not like a crappy duty or whatever. And so Viserys is like, all right, fine. I can kind of see it, and I can understand it. But as the conversation's going on, he gets notified that Rhaenyra, just returned from Dragonstone, and he's like, Dragonstone. So he goes over to his room, expecting her to show up, and he starts chastising her. You were in Dragonstone. You're my only heir. You could have gotten killed. And Viserys has this really funny thing where he wants to sound angry. He wants to sound tough, but then the things that he does, not really that tough. So I found this super funny, because Rhaenyra is like, can I take a seat? And so she sits down, and Viserys sits down as well. He sits. He sits, and but he still wants to keep the voice. He's like, you went to Dragonstone. Like, clearly you'd already given it up, guy. So why are you still pretending to be tough? Again, I love Viserys. He's great. He's fantastic. And so they finally have kind of this heart to heart, and he's like, well, listen, clearly he's angry because he was concerned, but Rhaenyra kind of showed him, like, hey, listen, I'm capable. Like, I'm not a little girl anymore. Don't treat me like a little girl. And so he has a bit more of a heart to heart with her. The thing about the mom and his they start bonding about the mom and their pain of losing her. And he explains to Rhaenyra, like, hey, listen, I will have to marry again. This is something that's gonna happen. And Rhaenyra's like, okay, I get it. I understand. Cool. That's not really how she says it, but that's kind of what the gist of this conversation is. But it's a good moment between father and daughter. There's clearly a little bit more respect, so he's opening up more, and he really cares about her opinion. He shows that he loves her, stuff like that. You know, what's the line from Cersei? The way that men show you they care, by getting angry and stuff like that. And so this leads to Viserys deciding to announce in the worst way possible who he's going to marry in a small council meeting. And again, look, the balls of the people that are there are in the little coaster. So Hightower grabbed his ball and he put it on his little coaster. Viserys grabbed his ball and put it. What's the point? What's the point of doing the little ball thing? Is it like a test to see if you know which ball's yours? Like, if you grab the wrong ball, it's like, he's a faker. He's a faceless man. Get him. I swear to God, I'm never going to stop looking at those little balls. Like, any single small council meeting, I'm going to look forward to seeing if the balls are there or not. It's fantastic. It's so stupid, but I love it. And so basically it's a small council meeting, and again, in the worst way possible, Viserys decides to tell everybody that he's marrying Alicent Hightower. Like, we're not sure if he told Alicent. We're not sure if he definitely did not tell Rhaenyra. We're not sure if he told Otto. We're not sure who he told, but this is the worst way of telling anybody. Like, he should have mentioned it to Otto first, because it's like, hey, you know what, it's your daughter, are you cool with it? Should have maybe talked to Alicent, maybe. I guess it's still Westeros and you're the king, so her opinion really doesn't matter in this particular situation. It's going to be the dad, because again, this is feudal. It's a feudal world. And he definitely should have had a conversation with Lord Corlys Velaryon. But again, it seems like he doesn't like Corlys Velaryon that much, so pissing him off seemed like an extra, which is a bizarre thing for Viserys to do, because he's not that type of character. He's kind of like a wimp, but whatever. I mean, you know what? He's showing teeth. Good for him. And so he tells everybody, and Lord Corlys Velaryon, clearly upset, storms out of there. And Rhaenyra, clearly hurt, also walks out. She doesn't storm out. She looks like she's trying to take it, but then leaves. Because again, if you remember from episode 1, I have the theory that Rhaenyra has kind of a crush on Lady Alicent. Now, why do I say that? Is because in film, generally speaking, when a character is looking at somebody and they take a deep breath, like, that usually means that they are infatuated with them. And that's exactly what Rhaenyra did in the first scene that we see them together. Like, I'll just break it down for you if you don't remember, if you want to see it. Rhaenyra, she's riding Cyrax. She lands on the ground. Lady Alicent meets her on the outside of a cart, and Rhaenyra's Alicent is like, "Oh, your dragon's getting pretty big." Blah blah. By the way, in the world of Game of Thrones, swords are stand-in for penises, but also there's a lot of things that are stand-in for penises in the world of Game of Thrones, in the world of Ice and Fire. Dragons kind of could, in certain situations, be referred to something like that. So I just found it hysterical where she was like, "Hey, that's a really big dragon." Again, stupid stuff for book people, but whatever. Now whenever you think about that, you'll think about it the same way. But whatever. And so she gets off the dragon. She's like, "Oh, the dragon's getting pretty big." And Rhaenyra says something like, "Yeah, well, maybe you think she'll be big enough to ride too. Like, you want to ride my dragon? Huh? I want you to ride my dragon." You see you're starting to see the penis metaphor anyway. And Alicent's like, "No, I'll be a spectator." And so she gets back into the carriage, and Rhaenyra looks at her and she's like, and then she looks away. So again, somebody had to be directing this girl. And somebody had to tell her, look at her, take a deep breath, and then look away. Or maybe she did it by herself. Who knows? But generally speaking, when characters do that, it's because they have feelings, romantic feelings for a particular character. Just, FYI. It's like the same thing if you see a character eating in a scene, it means that they don't give a fuck. That's why, like sometimes the cool dude's eating an apple is like, it means I don't really care about this conversation at all. Like, I'm eating an apple. That's what that means, usually. Anyway, so it could be one of those things like, oh, like, you're my friend, you betrayed me, or they could have told me, or it's like, but I liked you. So, very interesting conflict there. It was set up before. The audience knew it. We didn't know where it was going to go. Now we're seeing where it's going to go. And again, here's the beauty of this thing. Alicent did not seduce Viserys in an overtly sexual way. Right? It's implied because she's a beautiful girl, whatever, and she was being kind, close, but she doesn't like, oh, I'm gonna like force you to sleep with me and take my maidenhead and now you have to marry me for honor. No, she was basically just there. She didn't push anything. She was just being kind, and it was brilliantly done. And again, you can see her like holding her hands and she's kind of damaging herself because she knows what she's doing, and she knows that what she's doing is wrong. But what is she actually doing other than just being nice? It's a very interesting situation, and now she's going to be in direct odds with her, best friend? Or, let's assume, I think they're best friends, so let's say with her best friend, because now, what's going to happen? She's going to be the new queen. She's going to have children eventually, so what's going to happen to Rhaenyra? Like, who's going to be the next heir? Is it going to be her son or her best friend? Like, it puts them in direct conflict, and again, you could see that maybe that's why she's in conflict with it, because she wants to be a kind person. She wants to be nice and good, but she's doing something that's going to be kind of shitty. And so, fun stuff, intriguing stuff, interesting stuff for the next episode, for the rest of the season. We'll see how it goes. I kind of already know how it goes, but you don't know how it goes, so we'll see how it goes. So, like I said, Rhaenyra walks out of the room, and this leads to Lord Corlys giving a very interesting monologue until you see who he's talking to, and then you're like, this monologue really doesn't make any sense. So he's basically doing a monologue about how House Valerian is older than House Targaryen, and therefore they're really more Valerian and blah, blah, blah. And then, it turns out that he's actually talking to Daemon Targaryen. So it doesn't really make sense for him to have this particular conversation with Daemon, because, he's trying to butter up Daemon for something. And in kind of insulting Daemon in a way, saying that yeah, my house is more Valerian than yours, is not really a good way to start it, but it was weird. And also, this is something that annoys me because in this conversation, Corlys Valerian says like, yeah, I unlike the rest of the lords of this of Westeros, I can say that everything my house has, I built it for myself, blah blah blah. It's like, dude, you also in the same monologue said when you ascended the throne of Driftmark, okay? So that basically means you took over a house. So you didn't start with nothing. All right, you did not start at box number 0 or box minus number 3 or something. You actually started out with a throne or a chair that's big enough that people would consider it a throne. So I'm sorry, not a self-made man. I know you want to feel that way, but you're kind of not. The same way as Daemon isn't. So you might have done pretty impressive stuff. Your house might have been kind of crappy before, and you made something out of it, and that's impressive in itself. But self-made man, kind of not. It's like the Kardashians. What's this Kardashian girl's name? I don't know. Kate Jenner, one of the Jenner girls, being like, "Oh yeah, I'm a self-made billionaire." Are you though? Really? I don't think it counts. You know, because you started self-made does not mean they gave you. You started off with a few millions from your family. That's just generally speaking. But whatever. Anyway. So this conversation with Daemon, and basically Corlys Valerian is pushing Daemon to do what I suggested earlier. Like, hey, how about if you do something cool, right? And you know, the realm doesn't give us enough respect. Viserys doesn't give us much respect. And Daemon is like, yeah, my brother's never really been good at being king, blah blah blah. And so, again, it's one of those things that you're like, okay, so they're trying to set up Daemon as kind of being easily manipulable or something, or maybe he doesn't have a brain. He's kind of like C tier intelligent, which he's supposed to be B tier at least. And by the way, what I mean is like there's A, B, and C tiers of intelligence, D, E, F, you know, by levels, and there's the S tier. So the S tiers would be like the little fingers, the super manipulators that you don't even know what the hell they're doing. The Varys would be there. The A's would be like the Tywin Lannisters, like highly capable, scary intelligence, stuff like that. B's would be, you know, like Jaime Lannister, like he's capable, he's smart, he can figure things out. And Daemon Targaryen is very similar to Jaime Lannister, but with a dragon. So highly capable, smart, he can figure things out, he takes action. He doesn't really wait for stuff. He doesn't really take direction that well. He kind of just gets information, does stuff. And Daemon has a lot of information and he's kind of sneaky. The way that I know that he's kind of sneaky is because we saw him in episode 1 sneaking into a small council meeting, spying on it. And so he clearly so he has more information than people think. So he likes people to know, he likes people to think that he's kind of ignorant about stuff, but he spies. Like he's a sneaky guy. Also, he sneaked into the dragon pit to steal a dragon. You kind of need to be sneaky if you're going to do that. So he's a sneaky dude. He should have more information, but he's not doing anything with anything. I guess that they wanted to add Corlys Valerian to this particular part of the story. I don't understand why, but at least, okay, maybe Daemon will do something now that's cool. It's not as cool that he's basically doing somebody else's bidding, but we'll see. At least, you know, just push him out and do something. Finally, basically, Corlys Valerian is like, you and me, we should go deal with the crab feeder, because, you know, I won't let him cripple my house, whatever. And by the way, just bringing us to that, I don't see why Lord Corlys Valerian needs the king's permission to go deal with pirates. Like, it's not really a thing. In fact, in feudal like, what is it, countries, in feudal times, basically the reason why you have feudal lords so that they can take care of crime in their own country, or in their own lands. So it's like, oh, well, you know, an army invaded, I have my own army and I'm gonna go get them. Or I have pirates and I'm just, you know, I'm gonna go get the pirates. So it would be pretty simple for him just to get, like, I don't know, 10, 20 of his ships and go kick the asses of the pirates. And if the free cities complained, they could have just been like, oh yeah, we're killing pirates. What, were you supporting the pirates? Well, whoops, we killed the pirates. And then, you know, just leave. But what you gonna do about it? Are you gonna declare war on Westeros? We weren't declaring war on you. We were declaring war on those guys, the pirates, you know, because pirates suck. Do you like pirates? Are you pirates? Anyway, so he could have done it. without asking permission. I don't know why they were asking permission. Again, well, I know why they were asking permission is because otherwise there wouldn't really be a plot for the show. I guess it would have worked out in a better way. I would have written differently, but whatever. Doesn't matter. And so by the end, we see just a little bit of the crab feeder. Let me see if I can find an image of him. Damn it. I don't think I get him from the front. But he looks pretty weird. He looks kind of scary. You know, Game of Thrones, they like having their weird looking villains. But that's where the episode ends. I mean, you can watch the extra credit stuff, but it looks... That's pretty much where it stops. So, that was episode 2. And like I said, pretty good. Overall, pretty good. Well made. Again, didn't need any nudity or violence. It was just all straight up political drama, interpersonal drama, subtlety, well handled, really well acted. And so it actually got me excited for this show. Like, keep doing this. This was really good. If we get more of this, even better, because it gives you something to talk about. Like after watching the episode, I started talking with my kid brother about, like, what do you think this means? No, it's this. No, you're an idiot. But it's getting you into it. And again, there's nothing quite like good Game of Thrones. So good overall. Happy about it. Whoops, wrong button. Happy about it. Happy that Game of Thrones is good again, and hopefully it'll stay that way. It was only episode 2, but it's starting to look pretty good. So if you were on the fence about watching the show, I can tell you episode 1 is okay-ish if you're an normie. Episode 2, I'm pretty happy with it. Again, it's on par with the season 2, season 3 episode of Game of Thrones, which were still reasonably good seasons. So there you go. Hopefully that helps. Hope it tells you something. As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me when I live stream at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch. I'll probably do one tomorrow night with my kid brother. It depends. I don't know if it's gonna be tomorrow night or Thursday night. We'll see how our schedules match up. But yeah, I'm gonna be trying to do more live ones. This one's not live, because as you probably know. Anyway, if you want to see my videos and stuff or other stuff in social media, you can find me at Dario SDW. As always, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.